Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive.
This time, we're going to be looking at Spotify.
And how it completely changed how we listen to music.
It's really fascinating, actually.
Yeah.
We got this YouTube video transcript from one of you guys.
And we're going to try to unpack the whole thing.
You know, before Spotify came along, we were stuck with vinyl
Cassettes?
CDs.
Remember having to actually buy a whole album just for one song?
Yeah.
Spotify really turned that whole model upside down.
That's right. But Spotify's success wasn't just some overnight thing.
You know, to really understand it.
I think we need to look at how we used to access music before.
And how that all changed.
Okay, so let's rewind back to, I guess, the early days of digital music.
And this thing called Napster.
Right.
It was like a total free-for-all.
People were just sharing music like crazy.
It was a revolution, really.
It was.
But not everyone was happy about it.
Artists were especially concerned about getting paid for their work.
Napster's impact was huge because it highlighted this tension that had always been there in the music industry.
People wanted free access, but obviously artists needed to get paid.
Napster got shut down eventually.
But it really paved the way for Spotify.
It showed just how much demand there was for digital music.
Yeah, and this is where the story gets really interesting.
Enter Daniel Ek.
The brains behind Spotify.
This guy was a total prodigy.
A web developer whiz kid.
A self-made millionaire.
Before he even turned 25.
Wow.
But then he hit a wall.
Sold everything.
And retreated to a cottage in the woods.
Kind of unexpected, right?
Yeah, that's pretty fascinating.
You know what's interesting is that Ek's journey.
It really shaped his vision for Spotify.
He had all the technical skills.
He also really understood what people wanted.
Easy and affordable access to music.
Yeah, combo was pure gold.
So Spotify launches.
And right away they're focused on the user experience.
The source we're looking at even uses words like...
lightweight. Like having the entire world's music at your fingertips.
Oh, yeah?
Remember how cool it felt when Spotify first came out?
I do.
Just incredible.
It was groundbreaking.
The sheer amount of music you could access instantly.
They made some really smart moves early on.
They created a buzz by launching with exclusive invites.
Which helped them manage that early growth spurt.
And partnering with Nokia.
Remember when Nokia was the phone?
Yeah.
That was brilliant.
It was a genius way to dominate the mobile music scene.
But there was this one major hurdle they had to overcome.
Getting artists on board with the whole streaming thing. You know, Taylor Swift pulling her music from Spotify.
Really brought that conflict into the spotlight.
It was a clash between the old way of selling albums.
And this new idea of music discovery.
Through streaming.
Yeah, Spotify took a gamble there.
They bet that streaming could be more than just a way to listen to music.
They thought it could be a way to connect artists and fans.
In a whole new way.
But they had to walk this tightrope.
Offering enough free features to attract users.
While still making enough money to keep investors happy.
And of course, to pay the artists.
It was a delicate balance.
A very delicate balance.
Expert.
Yeah.
And to do that, they needed some serious cash.
They managed to get billions.
Wow.
In funding from investors.
They even used something called debt financing.
Basically taking out a huge loan.
With the hope that their future earnings
would cover the cost.
Pretty risky, right?
It is. It takes guts.
Especially when a lot of people in the industry
didn't even believe that streaming was the future.
It really shows how much they believed in what they were building.
Exactly.
And they weren't just up against skeptics.
They also had to compete with giants like Apple.
Right.
I mean, Apple is known for being super competitive.
They are.
And let's not forget about the innovations that really hooked us.
Think back to when Spotify first launched Discover Weekly.
Oh, yeah.
It felt like magic.
It did.
Suddenly, Spotify knew your music tastes better than you did.
It was a game changer.
It wasn't just about giving you music you already liked.
It was about introducing you to new artists and songs.
You know, stuff you might never have found on your own.
It really tapped into that,
human desire for something new.
But they didn't just rely on algorithms.
Spotify also brought in music experts.
And tastemakers to curate playlists and radio stations.
Oh, that's interesting.
It added this whole other level of personality.
To the experience.
That blend of tech and human touch.
That's what makes Spotify stand out.
It's like having a giant record store.
And your own personal DJ all in one.
It's amazing to think about how Spotify basically took over the music industry.
They even went public.
With a direct listing on the New York Stock Exchange.
Wow.
That's a pretty big deal.
It is.
It means they bypassed the traditional IPO process.
And let their shares trade directly on the market.
Their success has had a ripple effect on the whole industry.
Record labels, artists.
Even just the way we listen to music in our everyday lives.
It's all been transformed by Spotify.
And they haven't stopped there.
They've expanded into podcasts,
Audiobook.
live sessions.
It's like they're always pushing the boundaries.
It's a classic example of disruption.
They understood what users wanted.
They invested in cutting-edge technology.
And they weren't afraid to take risks.
That's a recipe for success in any field.
But here's the big question.
Can they stay on top? I mean, they've got some serious competition.
Apple Music.
Amazon Music.
YouTube Music.
That's the million-dollar question.
The music streaming world is always changing.
To stay ahead.
Spotify's going to have to keep innovating.
And predicting what users will want next.
Maybe they'll even go into areas we haven't even thought of yet.
It's like a never-ending game of chess.
Always trying to outmaneuver the competition.
I'm excited to see what they come up with next.
Me too. Spotify's journey's far from over.
That's what makes it so fascinating.
The source we're looking at mentions something interesting.
About their business model.
Okay.
They're making billions.
But a lot of that goes right back to the artists.
It's like they've created this system.
Where everyone benefits.
Even if it means Spotify takes a smaller cut.
That's an important point.
Spotify's success isn't just about the technology.
It's also about understanding the music industry.
And how it works.
They had to find a way to make it work for everyone.
Artists.
Record labels.
And listeners.
That's not easy.
It seems like they've really built a loyal fan base.
Yeah, they have.
I bet you know people
who've been with Spotify since the beginning.
And haven't even thought about switching.
It shows the power of a good user experience.
You know one that's smooth and enjoyable?
And Spotify is always experimenting.
Adapting.
Creating new features.
Tweaking their algorithms.
They always want to make the listening experience better.
It's working.
The source we're looking at said that.
Spotify actually has more users.
And a bigger share of the revenue.
Than Apple Music.
Really?
Yeah, which is pretty impressive.
When you think about how Apple has that home field advantage.
With their music app?
Already on every iPhone?
That's a good point.
Spotify's success is even more impressive.
When you consider that they don't have other businesses to fall back on.
Unlike Amazon or Apple.
Who have all these other products and services.
Spotify has bet everything on music streaming.
It's a high-stakes game.
But they're winning.
They are.
It's like they've cracked the code.
For success in the digital age.
They get that it's not just about the technology.
It's about creating an experience.
That connects with people.
Right.
On a deeper level.
When you look at the big picture.
Spotify's story is a reminder.
That even in a tech-driven world.
It's the human elements.
Emotions.
Desires.
Our need to connect with each other.
Those are the things that really drive success.
So where do we go from here?
Can Spotify stay on top?
What's next for them?
What do you think the future holds for music streaming?
Those are the questions everyone's asking.
But one thing's for sure.
Spotify has changed how we experience music.
Maybe forever.
And the lessons they've learned.
About innovating.
Understanding what people want.
Navigating tricky industries.
There's lessons applied to way more than just music.
They're valuable for anyone.
Who wants to create something that matters?
In this digital world we live in.
That's a great point.
Well, that about wraps up our deep dive into Spotify.
It's been a fascinating journey.
From those early days of Napster.
To the rise of this streaming giant.
It's a story of disruption.
Innovation.
And ultimately,
the power of understanding what people really want.
Thanks for joining us.
We'll see you next time for another deep dive.